Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today. So we are doing the ArcGIS Enterprise stream session today. So a little bit of introductions. You may have seen me if you just came from the pro session, but my name is Jess, and I am a solution engineer for Eagle Technology. So my job is to create a lot of demonstrations for conferences, but also for lots of different industries. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves as well.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Hansen. I am a managed service consultant for Eagle Technology. So mostly what I do is everything that you'll see in this presentation. I take a lot of the administration off your hands for the tasks where that's required, allowing you to just get on with using Enterprise as a user without having to worry about the licensing or things crashing in the background.
Cool. I am Edward Wong. I'm a developer and I lead the AI work here at Eagle Technology and with a lot of the innovation bits as well. And that's your presenters, that's three of us, and we'll be doing ArcGIS Enterprise. So just making sure that's the right sessions because I'm not allowed to leave now. Jess will be starting off, and that's our agenda. Jess?
All right. So I will be taking us through the first component of this, and then we will have Edward and Jason coming and joining us again shortly. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you shortly. So hopefully you guys are in the right room, as Edward said. For those of you who have no idea what Enterprise is, in like 20 seconds, let me just explain to you what it is. So ArcGIS is built on 4 foundational components. We have Pro, we have Enterprise, then we have Online, and the developer-focused sort of location platform. And this allows users to deploy their software in their own or private cloud infrastructure. We have SaaS, or we have PaaS, Platform as a Service. And so Enterprise is the foundation software system for GIS that powers mapping and visualization, analytics, and data management. And it is managed by you guys, which is very different than ArcGIS Online, which is dynamically managed for you. And so Enterprise, we have a lot of different capabilities to walk through today. So we're going to probably go quite rapidly through a lot of the updates. And so don't stress, though. These slides will be available as a PDF afterwards. But this whole session will be recorded as well. So you can rewatch it and slow things down if there's anything in particular that interested you. So I'm going to quickly kind of go through some of the highlights of the releases. So starting with 11.4. We obviously have, release numbers are really important when it comes to Enterprise, as it completely determines the capabilities that you have and how up-to-date things are. But we have different types of releases. We have short-term releases, and then we have long-term releases. So with these releases, 11.4 was a short-term release, 11.5 long-term, but we do have 12.0 coming up, which will be another short-term one. And so we'll discuss all of that as we kind of go along. So there were a lot of things in 11.4. Most of the session is going to be focusing on 11.5 and the capabilities that came with it, just because it's the newest one that people are on. But 11.4 brought a lot of changes and a lot of cool things. So this is kind of an overview of this. And so we'll go into a little bit of detail of some of the 11.4 highlights, because some of them will impact the capabilities that came in 11.5. For instance, user types changed. That was a big one for 11.4. For instance, instead of editor, we go to contributor. We had our GIS professional standards. Now it's just called professional. And so the changing of user types, it wasn't just in name. There were actually added capabilities that came with this. For instance, getting access to ArcGIS Pro before, when you had to have a certain license level to have it, and then being able to have it with a creator license is really impressive. We also have item classification was a new thing that came in 11.4. Which is quite a cool functionality as well. It's opt-in, so it wasn't something that was mandated. But we were able to apply labels to items in your organization to just kind of denote the level of sensitivity may be, if it was, NDA protected or it was very sensitive information. And it allowed you to create kind of rules for that. And again, it was often, it was not the same as sharing levels. It wasn't actually, making something private or making something organized and shared. But it was still a setting. And when I mentioned user types, and I said that we had things added to them, this is part of it. We had a GeoBIM with contributor, mobile worker, creator, professional, and professional plus being added. And Excalibur with creator, professional, and professional plus as well. So these are like capabilities. You just got more bang for your buck. These are not add-ins that you had to purchase. They were just attached to these user types that you were able to start using. Also, audit logging. That was added to 11.4, which means that actions on users, roles, groups, and items are being logged automatically. And it's really important in cases where you wanted a clear trail of user activity required to ensure accountability. It's also really key for analysis in case of a security breach. These logs are in JSON format, so they can really be easily ingested into other software like Splunk to analyze them. And advancements to audit logging, they continued after this in 11.5. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. But basically, IT administrators get to audit ArcGIS server events. So a very popular request on the ArcGIS ideas page was to be able to update the public portal URL. Doesn't happen often that the URL needs to change, but when it does, it can be a challenge to do this with Enterprise. So changes to the URLs can happen because maybe you're rebranding, maybe you're merging business or moving to a new domain name. In 11.4, you had the option to then change the URL to your portal and the federated servers. And this capability made sure that all the items, the layers, and configurations were updated with the new URL. But this is just a reminder that when it comes to 11.5, you need to make sure that your system is patched and backed up before using this, the update organization URLs. Even though this was introduced in 11.4, there is something that happens in 11.5 that requires an application of a patch to really successfully follow this. So we might go into a little bit more detail, but come in and ask the Eagle staff at the booth if you have any questions about this or you'd like some assistance. And then one final thing, again, that was kind of a big deal was the whole migration from tile cache to object store. This is a big deal in that we want people to be migrating. And the QR code there will lead you to a blog that explains what this is all about. What are the steps that you have to take to make sure that this all goes smoothly for you and that your migration works out quite well. So we'll have a little bit of a best practice. Also, I see people taking out their phones. Awesome. So I'll leave that there for a second. We will have a best practice at the end of this session. We'll be able to walk you through some advice when you go down this path. So that was a very speedy run through of 11.4. 11.5 now is our newer one. So what came in 11.5? And a lot of us actually might have unknowingly seen some of the things that were coming in 11.5 because it was in ArcGIS Online. And usually that's what happens with Enterprise, is that the next release follows the capabilities that came in ArcGIS Online. Now they're available to you in your Enterprise version. So starting with content management, the metadata editor. So you can override existing metadata for an item using the metadata from a different item. It's really important now because in the future when we're using AI, it's going to be based off of accurate metadata. So this is really critical to be able to make sure our workflows for editing our metadata are as streamlined and as perfect as possible. Content management. So it's just a little easier to find things. The sublayer search allows you to find layers that are sublayers by the keywords that you're using. And also a little feature of being able to just drop geotagged photos from a zip file and be able to instantly have those geolocations that you can then pull up into your map. Map viewer. So in the GIFs here, we have a map of transpower electricity structures and some climate models. Animated symbols are now supported in 11.5. So you can find pre-configured symbols in the vector symbols section. You can modify them in this animation pane that you have access to. This helps you emphasize features. So we can use in that GIF, we have a capability of higher climate risk index in the video, which helps us really quickly identify things because of those animated symbols. But also, Map Viewer now supports display filters that have been published from ArcGIS Pro. So those get maintained. This is really helpful when we're using like scale-based display filters to show the appropriate features for a zoom level. And if configured, you can also choose from manual display filters as well. So it just makes it really easy to manage and visualize a layer with a lot of different overlaying features. Then we have Scene Viewer. So Scene Viewer as well had quite a few advancements of really amazing capabilities with having our Building Explorer tool to allow us to navigate through these 3D scenes and to explore different floors of a building. But we also had a slide manager. A slide manager allows us to basically have bookmarks, but they freeze the view of our 3D scene in the correct configuration that we want. And so when you're going through it, it's almost like a PowerPoint in that it's really smooth. You can have labels, you can have context in these sort of slides as you're kind of navigating through it. It just makes that whole experience a lot smoother, a lot nicer. And then there were some analysis capabilities that also came to Scene Viewer. Now editing. So Web Editor came to Enterprise. So that was from 11.4. But we even had already, since it just came out in Enterprise in 11.4, we've already had some advancements. So we can do batch editing now, which is really amazing in that you can edit attributes for multiple features at the same time. So you can navigate through individual features and edit them, or use a shared form to edit attributes for all the selected features at once. We also have new instant apps that were added as well. So we had quite a few that were added to the templates. We had Atlas, we had Manager, Reporter, and the sort of interface for how we're able to navigate through all these apps was also changed just to make it a little bit easier as well. So the Instant Apps interface has basically a search box for app capabilities, allows you to choose a map, and you can toggle between a map, a scene, or group items. And then basically, depending on what you're choosing, once you've chosen the item you want to create an app for, your templates are then filtered based off of data compatibility. So when we have apps like Compare, Observer, and Streamflow Viewer now available, we can, sorry, hold on one second. There we go. So one of the ones that I think is quite amazing is Observer. It's a really great template for exploring 3D scenes and displaying data statistics. So in this one, we had NIWA's sea level rise scenario, which was published by the Ministry for Environment right alongside Wellington City Council as 3D buildings to kind of assess potential community impacts. And as we navigate the scene, it dynamically updates the StatsNZ's census statistics. So these are the apps that are now available in 11.5, which is really incredible. Also, just a couple of dashboard updates as well, just to make it a little bit easier. We had dual access charts, but you also might notice that there is some custom fonts there. That's not your normal dashboard font, so you can now change that within dashboards. Again, making sure that the layouts and the design match your organizational standards. And with Experience Builder, so quite a few updates with Experience Builder. So we have a new processing templates widget in Experience Builder that allows you to publish an image service and add raster functions. You can perform on-the-fly actions and transformations using this. And Express Mode. So this is, I know, a big deal to people because I know that Web App Builder was one of the most popular tools that we had. And a lot of apps still exist off of Web App Builder. And Express Mode is that final bridge that allows us to switch off of Web App Builder. And that instead of having to be overwhelmed by all the functions that we have in Experience Builder, with lots of customizations, which is awesome, but sometimes the advantage of Web App Builder had been the fact that you could quickly create something, that you had a template that you could use. And so Express Mode allows you essentially to do that. And so it's a really powerful way to create low-code or no-code apps. And with Express Mode, it's a switch. You turn it on in the top right of the Builder homepage when you create new, and then you can use templates. And these templates were based off of Web App Builder as well. And so in this example, we're going to choose the dashboard template. And so you're limited to customizing only the existing placeholders, which is similar to Web App Builder. So you have a really straightforward app building experience. And so using this app was created in just a couple of minutes. But the advantage of this is different than Web App Builder, is that we can also turn off Express Mode. So we can then go back to our normal version of Experience Builder if we need to start customizing things and make it a little bit more advanced. So together, Express Mode and Full Mode empower anybody to create like really engaging apps with efficiency, regardless of their app building background. So I want to talk a little bit about the roadmap. This is actually a little bit of road ahead stuff as well. But we know that Web App Builder is a big deal to people, and we know that there are still missing functions that people are waiting for. There are a lot of work goes into trying to make sure that the parity happens. And so we had, as I mentioned before, we have some capabilities. I mentioned Web Editor, but like batch attributes editing, notebook tool for one of our widgets, like they are coming rather soon as well. And so how they base off the parity, again, is from feedback. So there was a lot of talk on the Esri community page about which functions were still missing. So if there is something that's preventing your organization from being able to move on from Web App Builder, please let the Esri team know, because they are really keen to get that feedback and to help you as much as they can to make sure that Experience Builder does suit your needs. And so the final note that I have before I'll pass on to Edward to talk about some other things is that 11.5 gets us ready for 12.0. So there are a lot of kind of notices, I guess, that will be coming. I mentioned again that Web App Builder, we want to move to Experience Builder. In 12.0, we'll not have Web App Builder. So 11.5 is basically our last move to kind of get ready for that. And there's other couple things with 12.0 not having JavaScript 3.x apps. That won't be supported, and there'll be a couple of retired features as well. And again, that data store and the metadata editor classic, again, they will be retired in this release. So this is really important to consider. So 11.5 has a lot of capabilities, but do keep in mind that if you are interested in moving into 12.0 before that comes out, then there's some information you might want to just keep up to date with. And I do have a QR code to just make sure that you know what those actions are in a little bit more detail. So next up, I am going to pass to Edward so he can take us through some of the various engines, because as we know, Enterprise is a pretty big subject to talk about, and there's a lot of specific add-ons and engines and capabilities. So with that, I'll pass it to Edward.
Thank you, Jess. So Jess have covered how I see it. It's the core of Enterprise, and what we call it, it's a single enterprise and enterprise experience. And now we're going to look at the different parts that it's almost like add-ons that if you need the engine, then you can use it and to do analysis and many other things. So it's driven by our purpose-built analytic engine, and you may be already familiar with a couple of this already, like for spatial business intelligence analysis, standard vector tabulars, there'll be notebooks. For raster analysis, There are raster analytics servers and so on, image server. So we're going to cover all that, which will include vector, tabulars, deep learning tools to power computer visions. All right, so when these analytics engines make ArcGIS a comprehensive system, and then it's for analysis, it can be for developers, for data scientists, and analysts. To me, when let's say that beyond geoprocessing tools, geocoding, reverse geocodings, web services, other than that, in the data science space, often we see it as three things. The first one is real-time data. And then the second one is, what is the second one? Big data, real big AI, real-time data, big data, and then we come to AI, doing analysis and so on. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is how you can do the end-to-end analytics with ArcGIS Enterprise. So what we have now is Geo Event Server, which often go together with Geo Analytics Server. So Geo Event Servers, it depends on your analytics strategy, but often it's quite important to remember that data has a shelf life, and it's especially true for data sets from real-time sensors and feeds. And this makes real-time visualizations and analytics critical business functions to ensure the maximize of your investment in the data. So Geo Event Server, you will get the interface. You can connect whether it's doing the polling or talking to the message brokers, and then you set up the inputs. This is the output feeds. Where I'm going with is that ArcGIS Velocity applications make it easy to quickly get started with your real-time data processing. And it's probably supposed to be a root ahead information, but ArcGIS Velocity will be coming into enterprise. So this is where you can set up feeds and your real-time analytics and big data analytics all together. And because this is different in ArcGIS Online, you don't have to worry about the computational powers. You don't have to worry about the storage. It's all come with the license, depending on what license you get or you're using. In enterprise, then you can use your resources to do, and your storage, you can configure those things. Well, with Velocity, just in general, in both online and enterprise, so we're looking at bringing Velocity with the same functionalities. The first part is feeds. So feeds is ingesting the data, as I mentioned before, message broker, pollings, HTTP, many different mechanisms, whether it's just 10 seconds, 30 seconds polling, or down to sub-seconds. So you're doing the data ingestions and then make it as a feeds or a stream layer. The second part is the real-time analytics. So when all those data come in, what is the first thing that you want to do? It could be as simple as, I want to round the decimal to 2 digits, or you want to do spatial analysis, you want to do this and that, whatever functions that you want to call. That's a real-time analytics. Every time the polling happens or every time the new data is coming, you want to run that. The third part of Velocity is it will allow you to accumulate your data, your historical data, and once you can design and run the big data analysis with all the historical data, so that you can also schedule it. So you run it, you go in and run it every 6 months. You don't have to run it every day. So that's the main difference of real-time analytics and the big data analysis. And of course, it comes with an interface that you can use. From memory, it's very similar to what ArcGIS Online will looks like. So do I have the screenshots? Nope, I don't have the screenshots. But it will allow you to have a web interface, and then you can use that to do all that three things. And also you can look at what's the feature layer that are created, and you will have go into your portals, and then you'll be able to use those feature layer in map viewers as well. one of the main challenge or the things that I would start thinking about is probably for some organization, it might be tricky to determine what the data ingestion rate is. And the licensing restricts based on the how much data you're pulling in per second, and that's the threshold. That's for the ArcGIS Online. For enterprise, it will be different, and it will release all the information when the product is out. But what I want to share here is there's a page, we call it velocitysizer.s3.com. So going to this page, you will be able to paste in your sample data, and then it will tell you all the metrics, all the informations. This is your data, how often you're running it, how much computations powers you would need to do. Not the computation power to do real-time analytics, but just the storage and also what's the power that need to ingest those data. So if you're curious, if you're dealing with real-time data, if you're dealing with feeds, you've got a lot of sensors, this might be a good place to start testing it out and also start thinking about, is this something that you want to bring into your system? Then we have the GeoAnalytics server. So currently, GeoEvent server is what it's the product that allows you to ingest data, and GeoAnalytics server can be deployed on cloud infrastructures, and there are tools that are available to help you to deploy enterprise on Azure or AWS, and of course cloud deployment as well. So what it does is when the data's come in, what's the analysis that you want to do, and also optionals, you have the distributed computing mechanisms to run large-scale geospatial analysis faster. So that will be in Velocity as well. So the next part that I'm going to talk about, it's not so much enterprise, but I just think when you are starting to think about this real-time data or processing, we have a product called GeoAnalytic Engine. So it's a slightly different concept where you're not bringing the data to your server to process it. Instead, we are bringing GeoAnalytic Engine to Databricks environments, and then we are running the process over there. So how it works, when we deploy GeoAnalytic Engine, you will start by configuring your Spark environments, and then you will load the GeoAnalytic Engine modules with it's a jar file, and also it can be a Python view as well. So this is in Databricks. Within your cluster, you can add that modules in, add the library in, and then we use the resources that are available within your cluster to do the process. And you can run, it's just like a Python notebooks, and this interface is very similar to just Jupyter notebooks, and that's how you run the process. And once you set that up, you can then access the data from your other cloud data repos, and when your environment is running, you can then start doing data cleanings, data sanitization, engineerings, and also use the geospatial, the spatial functions, spatial tools that come with the GeoAnalytic Engine, and then it can persist the analysis results by writing them back to your cloud data stores or into just ArcGIS portal through our Python API. Right, and we've covered real-time, big data, and now notebook server. So there's a new server, new features, which is using notebook as a receiver of your features service web hooks. And as you can see there, it's in beta in 11.4, and it's now fully supported in 11.5. So notebooks, there's also online version of it. So in online, you have different license, for example, basic and advanced. I think there's one more. So with advanced, say for GPU power, you get 4 gigs of it. And it's quite limited if you're trying to run a image analysis or you're trying to do some use some deep learning models. 4 gig is not enough. So ArcGIS Notebook Server will allow you to go past that. You can define how much compute powers you have in there, whether it's have GPU power or not. And then you can run by triggering job processing webhooks or using interface to go trigger it. Well, that leads us to another server, image server. Well, arguably, this is not where you run the analysis. Image server is where you do your image hosting. So for all your imageries that you bring into your system, you put it into your image server, you host it in there. But what's come with it is usually the best practice that we'll recommend is you will have a raster analytics server that go next to it. So you host your image in this image server. It can stream to Deep Learning Studio. Deep Learning Studio comes with your image server. So it's a web app that allows you to do your end-to-end GeoAI workflow, from labeling to training to running, inferencing for imagery-based deep learning workflow. And then you can choose, all right, so you have an image server hosting all the imagery, stream it through Deep Learning Studio. It's a web app. Multiple people can work together, whether it's the same teams or within an organization, you will have different groups, different teams working together. The collaboration, it's the main part, I think. And also you can work with other organizations. And then you can use, the process would then be offloaded to raster analytics server. And you can have one or multiple raster analytics server, which you can scale horizontally or vertically. But we'll come back to the scalability at the end. This approach with offloading the processing, not offloading actually, it's like you're doing your processing on the raster analytics server. It applies with it's the same principle that work in different widgets as well. For example, through Experience Builder, you will now have an analysis widget that allows you to do this as, I'm talking about deep learning workflow, detecting objects, detecting swimming pools from imagery. If you're not doing Deep Learning Studio, you can do Xscalable, which allows you to do the same thing. And then you can also go to Experience Builder, use the analysis widget, do the same thing. The main difference there is how ArcGIS Online works is it's based on credit, so you can estimate credit. And then if you're happy with that, you click Run. But in Deep Learning Studio, your admin have already set up the process for you, and you just need to run it. And depending on how much power you have, then that's the wait time. Analysis widget in Experience Builder, that really opens up the analysis or the deep learning workflows to many users, because you only need one person to come in, create an experience with the analysis widget, and this is the imagery. And you can share it to 5 users. Everyone can choose their extent, and then they can run it, what models they want to run, and you just use the existing compute power to do that. Right. There's also video server, which is it's important given the value of your video data and how easy it is nowadays to collect video, whether it's from mostly there's a lot from CCTV, for traffic, for securities, for gates, indoors, outdoor. And then when you're collecting the video data, you can either stream it in, or you can actually accumulate the video data for other type of analysis as well. But you might feel like they are drowning in the video data. So hence why we have a dedicated products to help with this video server, and also the same mechanisms that was mentioned previously, using the analytics servers and using the computational powers to do analysis. For example, it's a FMV and you're trying to do object trackings, or from a CCTV, you're trying to do a car counts, how many pedestrians is walking past this street at this specific time. ArcGIS Reality Server, it's also coming soon. I've asked Jess, she said I can have one slide to talk about it. But you will see more details I think she will share more details with us in road ahead. So ArcGIS Reality Server is coming to Enterprise soon. So the concept here is you will bring a self-hosted scalability to your reality mapping workflows, allowing you to generate accurate foundational contains like true autos or 3D meshes using drones, aerial, satellite imagery. And of course, after scanning it, capturing it, you have the data and you can go back to do analysis with deep learning models or machine learning. Or usually if it is image, then it's either direct computer visions or deep learning models. Okay, on top of all the analytical stuff, one thing that often didn't get as much attention is the data that support it. So ArcGIS Living Atlas for Enterprise is actually slightly different to the Living Atlas that you get if you're accessing from ArcGIS Online. It could be a subset of the content that you will get from ArcGIS Living Atlas from online. Your administrators need to come in and choose whether it's what countries of the data from what countries that you get to see, and also say for deep learning models that we localize, train with New Zealand data. If your administrator didn't include this, you won't be able to access those deep learning model, and hence you're not able to use it in analysis tools in Experience Builder or Xscalable to run the deep learning process. So just wanted to share that with you guys in case you want to access this certain data or deep learning models and it's not available. That's a difference. There are also a lot of GIS and BIM integrations and also including products that you can get with ArcGIS Enterprise for indoors, IPS, GeoBIMs. All that thing is available in ArcGIS Online and also in Enterprise as well. But depending on the version of Enterprise, the feature that you will get will be different. So it's always a key point. It's always important to go check what version you need to have access to certain features. So there's quite a bit of it. We won't go too much into details, but if you want to know more, we can talk about it afterwards. All right, Workflow Manager Server. Not gonna lie, this is actually something new to me until 2 weeks ago, and then I have to ask someone what this is. It's been around for quite a long time. It provides the tools and a service for you to automate, centralize, and standardize GIS and non-GIS workflow. It almost acts like a conductor orchestrating the repeatable process for you to, whether it's for QA/QC purposes, managing the data quality, or optimizing the resource allocation across desktop, web, mobiles, and different mobile environments by integrating with other ArcGIS components. And now it's providing an open web interface to do that. The next one here is not Workflow Manager Server. It's called ArcGIS Monitor. It's something that's within our managed service team. I think they use it a lot. It allows provide the metrics on the health, performance, and usage of your ArcGIS Enterprise and its infrastructures. And it's developed based on the practical experience from our Esri professional service team. So if you want to know more, come talk to our managed service team. I'm sure they're in this room, or you can come talk to Jason, and he will tell you more about ArcGIS Monitor, not Workflow Manager Server. All right. ArcGIS Enterprise on Kubernetes. Often this is kind of like the heaviest topics that we always have this debate. Should we talk about Kubernetes? People are saying no one's using it. Why do you talk about it? But the fact is a lot of the technologies that we talk about, no one will be using it until we keep talking about it. We share why it's good, why you need to start thinking about, is this something that you will use? And then over time, people will start picking it up. And this is why we consistently want to talk about Kubernetes. So in putting analogies to describe what Kubernetes is, I'm going to use scenarios. We're setting the scene here is how you want to process a whole huge pile of fruits with a blender. So you want to extract insights, say detecting object using deep learning models, or it could be batch geocodings, whatever processing that you want to do, any sort of service, or hosting a web apps that will have like 300 billion of people using it. So using a blender, it's almost like you're putting the process on the server. If you only have one blender, it will take forever to process the whole huge pile of fruits. So what if you could use a lot of blender at once? So Kubernetes coming in, it's almost like the blender managers. There's smart kitchen managers where I can spawn multiple blenders with a magic wands to go, I want a new blenders, and then you have more ports to run the AI models or other processes, and it can distribute the fruit evenly to split the data across multiple ports. And also you can monitor how your blender is performing, monitors your blender health, and restart if some of the blenders start to fail. And then you can also do scaling up or down depending on how much fruit you have. And the last thing, it's something that we're actively working on, is using a special blender. So for normal processing, you might only need CPU. This special blender could come with graphic card. It's enabled with GPU powers. It can process, it can do deep learning workflow. And you can have a GPU-enabled ports for heavy-duty processing. So hopefully that examples help you guys to see what we mean when we say Kubernetes and when we say ports and server scaling or monitor the health, what we actually means. And without Kubernetes, you're running on one server. If it is slow, if it is crash, you lose the progress. So, right, now we'll go into this. ArcGIS Enterprise is the foundational system for workflows, applications that rely on location data, supporting your whole organizations. But with so many users across team and department, it can sometimes be challenging to design, especially and maintain a complex environments that meets everyone's expectations for performance and uptime. I think uptime is a very important element here as well. So Kubernetes can help with this. The strength of Kubernetes is ability to ease the administration part without sacrificing the high availability and scalabilities. And this is true no matter of which of the leading Kubernetes environment you use. It does that by following the cloud-native patterns, including microservices that can be easily distributed and scaled, and also the containers for fast and consistent deployment and maintenance. And the last thing is the orchestration through Kubernetes to deploy, manage, and monitor the system. Okay, I will go a little bit more into details. If you think this is good, this is probably when you take photos, bring back to your administration team, show it to them and tell them, hey, we have a really complex system. We got like 200 people, 50 people using it. Do we want to start thinking about this? It's made for your enterprise cloud, whether it's on-prem or private clouds, public clouds, and it will run on managed Kubernetes environments like top right, Microsoft Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, and then there's AWS, EKS, there is Google Kubernetes Engine on Google Clouds, Rancher Kubernetes Engine, Red Hat OpenShift. And it also supports PostgreSQL and SQL Server compatible data source and give you the flexibility to integrate with your DevOps infrastructures. So it also support cloud native object store. So the cloud native, it's definitely an approach that S3 that with enterprise, the direction that we are heading. In fact, in 11.5, Jason will probably Jess have covered, and Jason will talk a little bit about setting up the store as well. And the deployment and the upgrade workflow are run with simple script that could be built into your infrastructure as code solution with package like Terraform, Biceps, or others. The most important thing to remember is that ArcGIS Enterprise and Kubernetes bring benefits to organizations with large, complex ArcGIS Enterprise deployment, and it's highly scalable, easy to deploy, manage, and it supports high availabilities and offers strong DevOps integration. So that's sort of my summary. And of course, both public and private clouds. I think it's almost the same thing with AI. It's important to see the whole picture and to decide where you want to stop. Like someone want to do AI, they want to do everything of AI, or some just want to use AI assistant. So why I put so much details into this and try to fight so much to have so much time to talk about Kubernetes is hopefully helping everyone to see it. Is this something that you will need? Or if you only have 3 persons using ArcGIS Enterprise, you don't need the scalabilities, or maybe it's just the deployment and management that will benefit you guys. So start to think about that side. What's new? And that's why we're here for. We will have road ahead to talk about what's coming next. What's new? What's the first one? Can I just see it? Port placement for notebook runtime. That's resource configuration for CPU and GPU, which means you can share short memories, and then you can restrict on with this port, with this service, how much resources it can use, which one, which server, which port it should use, which blender, if we are sticking back with the previous example. New fruits coming in, this is oranges. I want to put to blender 1 and 2 and not 3 to 4. So you're setting the rules, and this is what it means. Moving next, another user managed storage improvement, raster analysis improvement. It's also a big one where in Deep Learning Studio, you now, the special blender example that we talked about, GPU enabled, and you can scale the ports, and then using just one share web interface, Deep Learning Studio, you'll be able to run the deep learning process and other image analysis. Of course, you can use raster analytics server for that. So that's what that point is. And then we will jump to custom data feeds, because I will have other slides to talk about the support for VMware cluster. Now, I actually do have slide for custom data feeds, so we'll look into the details. So with the VMware support, what this is a unified platform for developing and operating your applications, and it provides a standardized and secure environments for both Kubernetes and your Cloud Foundry runtimes. So it's about the multi-cloud Kubernetes distributions for provisioning and managing Kubernetes cluster on-premise or on the clouds. And Scott Bradley is there. If you want to know more, talk to him or Jason or the managed service team. I'm very lucky because when I want to use technology like this, I go to them, I ask them how they do it, and then they will try to configure and set up the environment for me. But they are the guru in that space, so talk to them if you want to know more. Custom data feeds. So data from custom data feeds can be served to web clients, desktop apps, and few apps as a read-only feature service. The following examples that I'm going to give is where you want to create a custom data feed. And remember, this is read-only feature service. So if you do not want to register your data source with ArcGIS Enterprise, you can use custom data feed. You want to access data that's maintained by a third party, you're pulling that in a read-only, and your data is stored in remote locations and need to be streamed as a live, not live, like a data feeds, then come in specific formats. And this is why custom data feeds, it's very powerful. And now I will pass it on to Jason to tell us more about some lesson learned best practice of upgrading to 11.5, because that's what he do on a daily basis. Jason.
Cool. Thanks for that, Edward. As Edward kind of mentioned towards the end of his piece there, we don't just manage enterprises, we also build them out. So in some of these cases, we will create whole environments just to run through and be able to test out some of these capabilities that Edward and Jess have been able to show us today. Okay, so for those of you out there who are ArcGIS Enterprise administrators, there may be things in here that you hear today where you're like, oh, I already knew that. And hopefully that is the case, because some of the best practices are things that have been the case for a while, but as the technology changes and new things come and go, there are things to add on to that or ways that this can be expressed a bit differently. So one of the major recommendations I would make is just to ensure that your enterprise is within general availability when it comes to support. So as mentioned earlier on, some versions of enterprise are long-term releases, some are short-term releases. And it's best to try to make sure that the version that you're on is going to be supported for a while yet. What I'm kind of hinting at with that is you upgrade your environment, and you do that probably yearly would be a good suggestion. There will be some things that I talk about where it may not apply in your situation, and I'm going to be telling you that that's best practice. There's always going to be exceptions. So one thing when it comes to enterprise, Esri has a direction that they're heading in where there is a bit of a promotion around going cloud native. That's something I would sort of suggest to look into as well, but of course there's always offline deployments as well. There are scenarios where you have a on-prem enterprise, and it may not be practical for everyone to go cloud native, but there are quite a lot of benefits to be had in that space. So it's something to look into. If you're planning to create a new ArcGIS Enterprise, usually there's a reason for that. So you will have something that you're trying to create a solution for. You'll have a scope of work that you're looking to address. And it's not just because, you know, all the things that we've learned about today are cool and brand new and we want to go try them out. That might be a good reason to try to expand the scope of your enterprise that you're planning. But if you know what you're going to be doing with it, then you're going to be planning around that. You're going to be planning what kind of capabilities you want, which server roles are going to come into the mix. And you're probably going to have some idea around what kind of content is going to be hosted in this. So with that in mind, when you're going to build an enterprise, there's always going to be a list of minimum requirements that you're going to need in terms of the system that you're going to be installing on. You're not always going to want to keep that to the minimum. There's going to be a lot of cases where you're going to want to bump that up. You may want to think about things like workload separation. So what that would be is taking different components, installing them on different machines to be able to get to sort of leverage the resources that are available to you. So an example around cloud native and workload separation that I think would be a good one to introduce here when we're going into 11.5 is the deprecation of the tile cache data store and the migration that we talked about earlier to the object store. So there's an option 1, which is to install the ArcGIS managed object store. So that's a piece of software just like the regular ArcGIS data store. The sort of requirements for that suggest that you probably need about 16 gigs of RAM to run that piece of software. It's suggested that you probably shouldn't run it with the rest of your enterprise, and it would be better to put that on its own machine. Whereas if you're going cloud native, you can have an object store in the cloud using blob storage or an AWS S3 bucket, and then you get to keep that RAM for other purposes. You don't have to dedicate it specifically to that component. I would suggest also becoming familiar with the ArcGIS I forget what it's called now, funnily enough. But you'll see it here in this picture up the top. It's a well-architected framework. That's what it's called. So this will show you how your data is served out through different services and how those services can be exposed through applications. And it gives you a way to architect the system from the data end right the way through to the user experience and how to make the most of how those components are designed and the thought that's put into those for how it reaches the end user. In a similar way to that flow of data through to user, you may also want to consider the defense in depth model. So this is something that's seen across the IT world more broadly, but how you can consider your security approach at different layers, from the data layer to the network layer, right the way out to making sure that you have a secure password. So there are ways that this is reflected within ArcGIS as well, and this is something to reflect on if you are building a system. And then again, we've looked at ArcGIS Monitor today. I would bring that into the picture too, to check that everything's running smoothly and that you, if anything isn't running smoothly or there are services that fall over, there are components not doing their job, then you're able to pick up, it will alert on these. We can address those as they're happening in real time. So for those of you who aren't necessarily ArcGIS Enterprise administrators, there's also things to think about that will help your administrator. When it comes to services not performing, that's usually when you might go and say, hey, this thing's not working, this thing's fallen over, what can we do about this? And often there will be a lot that we can do to support you in that sense. But making sure that your services are performant is probably a good place to start as well. So there's a lot of best practices around content and making sure that it draws properly. You don't want too many vertices in your polygons. I mean, that's one that everyone's probably familiar with to some extent. So generalizing your polygons, doing whatever you can to reduce the amount of data in a service, turning off layers that aren't needed, using scale-dependent rendering, finding ways to cache your data. There's many options out there, and with the object store coming back into the picture too, that was something that was introduced originally for the purposes of caching query responses, and that's something that you can look into at 11.5 now that that's back in the picture. That's something that you're going to have, so that's also an option for reducing the demand on your server so that you're not making the same requests again and again. Now, just to cover off at the end, some of the things to think about when we're upgrading to 11.5. So this is the last version for Enterprise 11. This is kind of a transition version before we get into 12, and we've talked a little bit earlier on about what's being deprecated. I would say if you're moving to 11.5 at the moment, it's probably a good time to spend the rest of the year ahead thinking about migrating apps and making sure that everything is moved over ready for version 12. Another thing to think about if you are doing this upgrade yourself is what you want to do around that object store if you are going to go cloud native, if you do want to make some more resources available to use the ArcGIS managed object store. And when you do upgrade, I'd also just say give your Living Atlas a quick check, because that does, at 11.5, there are some ways that that is consumed a bit differently. So once that upgrade is complete, the Living Atlas won't be there anymore. You'll need to re-enable that and download the latest version. Okay. I can see that we're very quickly running out of time, or we've already run out of time actually. So we will move on to some Q&A.
Approved. Why does the web editor apps not support the contributors user types? So licensing related.
Yeah, so unfortunately licensing is not really my strong point here. So I'm not going to be able to answer that one today, unfortunately. But if we have anyone else who knows that, feel free to shout out your response.
Or come talk to us after. We'll make sure we'll be able to provide more licensing related information. Okay. The second one is, can the default content view be set to my organization instead of my content? I think it was the portals. Is that what it's talking about?
Can the default content view be set to my organization instead of my...
Is this about when you go to portals and then you see my contents and my organization, and you want my organization to be default?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Okay, yeah, so I guess the way I'm understanding that is when you load up your portal, you want that to be not out of the box. I mean, there might be some clever thing you can do to make that happen, but it's not something that's designed to give you that option. So I guess the quickest answer is no. Yeah.
The third one, we are basically approving everything. So approving all the question I meant. What is the difference between ArcGIS Velocity and Geo Event Server? I would say Velocity, it's a more modern engine that's designed to do three things together: ingest, real-time analytics, big data analysis, and it's aimed to, over time, slowly becoming a more preferable options than Geo Event Server. There is system integration between ArcGIS Velocity and external system like ERPs. Integrations could mean very different things. So with the polling it's calling just it's with the REST standard. So any endpoints that you can call with HTTP and just using REST, you'll be able to do polling. The restriction there, we don't have the specification just yet for the velocity that will come to enterprise, but in ArcGIS Online for the polling, the limitation there is only down to 10 seconds. That's the fastest rate for polling. For other near real-time data or down to sub-seconds, you'll be using message broker. So that's the two main mechanisms, and I don't know enough about the ERP systems and what mechanisms they will open up the system so Velocity can ingest those data. But if you have direct questions or use case, let us know and I can pass it on to the team. My organization is currently running 10.9.1. What's required to upgrade to 11.4, 11.5? Can you recommend how to make a business case for updating yearly?
Is this one still working as well? Okay, so the question disappeared. Oh, here we go. It's up here, right? Yeah, I'll just use this.
Sorry, I forget.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that doesn't have
That's
mine.
okay. Yeah, so upgrading from 10.9.1, before you get to 11.5, it's probably a good idea to do a stepped upgrade to an earlier version of 11. So maybe like 11.1, 11.3, and then go up to 11.5. You don't have to do a double step, but yeah, there will be things that get introduced where that is probably a good idea to do that extra step in between. Can I recommend how to make a business case for updating yearly? I guess this is going to depend on your organization. It's going to depend on how you're managing things at the moment. If you were to have an Eagle managed service, that's part of the deal. You get that for free. if you're managing your own organization, I think you're just going to have to be upfront with the fact that if you don't do this, it's not the end of the world, but the reason I did suggest earlier that it's best practice to upgrade yearly is because when new things are introduced, or there's even patches that are coming out, these things tend to be designed and built and applied around an updated system. You're going to have people working in your IT space who are upgrading the operating system the enterprise runs on, and so you just want to make sure that your software is running at that version so that you're not getting unexpected things where you're running a system that's almost sort of untested because it's not running on the kind of platform that it was designed to run on. So those are sorts of thoughts that I'd bring to the table when creating that business case. Something to think about there.
And adding on top of it, sometimes it's best practice, securities, and also optimized workflow, but also some new workflow, new features. Like say if you want to do the deep learning workflows that you're talking about, but if you're on 10.9.1, then your ArcGIS Pro version might not get 3.5, or you won't be able to have Deep Learning Studio at that time because it's not rolled out yet. Then you won't be able to use those web apps and functionalities. So hopefully that could be one of the reasons. If you want to use a certain tools, that could be one of the drivers as well. When do you think Azure will be an administrator tool that helps migrate containers from one environment to another? I think there's ArcGIS Assistant that we use sometimes, but is there any tools that that's help with that?
There's nothing that I know of that's directly provided by Esri, and in fact I'm not even sure ArcGIS Assistant is Esri specifically, is it like that? I don't know if they take responsibility for that one. It's not official. So yeah, I don't think there's anything official there, but there are workflows that you can use to achieve this. I wouldn't be surprised if something comes out at some point, but I don't know of anything planned for that.
We'll be happy to share with some of the tips and the tools that we found that we use that can help with those, or even just like the concept how you can do container migration.
Yeah, I do think there's kind of a need for these sorts of tools, and that need is kind of made. That's kind of heard. I think with that URL change tool that the guys had shown earlier, there's a lot of people asking for that kind of functionality, and so the more people ask about the stuff, I wouldn't be surprised to see it pop up because of that.
And we can also use a very magical button to turn this question into a request and forward it to the product groups so they understand what's the need, and is there a chance that there will be a tools that they can release to help all of us to do that.
And depending on the scope of what you're trying to migrate, Joey Law from Auckland Transport did a streaming session this morning that may cover some of that. If you wanted to talk to him, there was some great stuff in that presentation.
Next question. We've got 5 more minutes, so quickly wrap up. Did I understand it right that Velocity will be part of ArcGIS Enterprise from 11.5, or would it be an add-on? It's not 11.5 at this stage. Come to Red Hat. We will have the information to share with you guys. From memory, it's 12.0. That it will be. It's not part of enterprise. It's a separate components. When do you recommend an organization to go from on-prem to clouds? Number of users, workload. What should an organization consider? Cost comparisons.
Yeah, I think that the last part of that is kind of the answer, the cost comparison. I think money is kind of the decision maker at the end of the day on this one. For the most part, could be some other driving factors, but I think that's going to be your biggest one. If you've already invested in hardware and that's got a bit of a lifespan on it, it may not make sense to pay those cloud costs if those on-prem resources are able to do that job. Otherwise, if they're coming to the end of their life, you can rely on operational expenditure, which, depending on how your organization budgets, will always be renewing, and you can pay out of that, so that can free up the capex for other things. So that's something I'd think about in terms of making that decision. It's probably the major one there.
The next one, I know the answer of this. What is the easiest way to upgrade enterprise repeatedly over time? Our managed service or Jason?
That, or what we tend to do is, there are other options, but our kind of favored one that we use is the ArcGIS PowerShell DSC, or desired state configuration. So you can use this to install ArcGIS Enterprise, where you configure your enterprise using a sort of JSON configuration. And you can also use that same approach for upgrading. The reason we like that is it's almost like a self-documenting approach, where if anything was to go wrong, it's actually in your configuration. You can go back and see what happened. If you're to do it manually each time, there might be little things that get introduced that you're unaware of, but if it's in the configuration, you're going to be aware of it because something didn't work. So you're going to go back and you're going to see that, you're going to fix it, and then it will work. And it's automated, so you don't have to keep clicking next on the installer. So that's probably a good way to go.
Last two, and we're closing it because the colors change from green to yellowish orange now. What are the risks? Wait, is it the last one? Yeah. What are the risks will we expect when upgrading from 11.3 to 12 directly, I guess? I think that's what the question is asking.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can really even answer that one until 12 comes out, if I'm going to be honest with you there. But to be honest, the biggest risks when it comes to 12 are going to be that content, whether you've got that migrated or not. So I would say check out what functionality is deprecated, and make sure that any of your content can be migrated, so from Web App Builder to Experience Builder. Get all of that stuff sorted, and you should probably be fine. Yeah.
Okay, so last one. How well does Enterprise 11.5 interact with HTTP 2?
Is there a more sort of specific question there? Because there shouldn't be any issue. Yeah.
No. And the questions stop coming in. Did we stop? Okay, we'll close that. All right. Thanks for taking your time coming to these sessions. Thanks, Jess and Jason, of course. Jess will be telling us more about enterprise and the road ahead for near futures directly from the product team, from some of the updates from the dev team tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah,
Yep,
tomorrow is the last day.
Please
yes,
attend.
it's tomorrow. We got the dinner tonight, so tomorrow is the last day. And thank you. See you guys later. You probably won't recognize me, but see you guys later.
Thank you.